What could cause so many mysteries in a single body of water? What happened to Northwest Flight 2501? Could there be a secret alien base in Northern America? Today, we test the believability of the Michigan Lake Triangle.
Welcome to Believing the Bizarre,
where we dive into the unknown and the unusual
and tell you whether or not we find it believable.
That is right. I cannot believe it is already August.
I can't either.
Summer's over. It's like Halloween is right around the corner. Basically, It's flannel time. Starbucks is going to start putting out all that pumpkin shit.
Oh God, it's coming soon.
Real soon. Dude, I have to talk about this really quick before we get into the episode. And I will make it fast. One of my favorite bands of all time is Rise Against, which is a big Chicago punk band. And very last minute, they decided to add a Cleveland show to their tour, which basically they called it a warm-up tour. It's pretty much like hey, we haven't played in 18 months. Before we go to New York City, we're going to, try you guys. So basically it's like the Indians, which are now the Cleveland Guardians. Like we've always been like a farming system for the Yankees. So it makes sense. So one of my best friends, Tyler, shout out Tyler, got us tickets. And holy shit, this was at the tiniest venue I've ever seen Rising and Sad. It's called the Beachland Ballroom. They basically sold 500 tickets.
Yeah.
It was small and sweaty. And we went to a coffee shop right by there and we got to meet the drummer. And then we got to meet the guitarist because he's walking around the venue. Awesome show. I can't recommend them highly enough. Probably a lot of you have already heard of them. But I'm off the soapbox now.
Yeah, I know. You sent me the pictures. It was very cool.
Very awesome. I was repping Believing the Bizarre, actually.
You were.
On my shirt.
I was in bed when you sent me those, so.
It was like 7 o'clock. Why were you in bed?
I was taking a nap, man.
Okay, I don't know what a nap is. But I do know what the Michigan Lake Triangle is.
I don't.
So let me say this really quick before we actually dive into the stories and all that stuff. So everybody's heard of the Bermuda Triangle, right?
Yes, I have.
And I'm sure we'll probably cover that eventually on this podcast.
One day.
It's actually kind of funny that we're doing like this one before the Bermuda. I feel like that's what we do. I feel like we don't do the big ones.
No, we do the
secondary.
The off-brands.
Yes. But Bermuda Triangle, sorry, because just like a Detroit Lions winning season, that's for another day.
What an inside joke.
I'm just kidding. And shout out my boy Matt from Michigan. But today we're talking about the Lake Michigan Triangle. So do you remember what a triangle with 3 unequal sides is called? Pop quiz.
Acute or obtuse?
That's how, that's the angle. Like an acute is a less than 90 degrees.
Isosceles?
That's when 2 of the sides are the same.
I'm gonna
scaling.
Go with, scaling.
Scaling.
I don't know. Equilateral, I know, is all the same.
Yes. So a scalene triangle is what the Lake Michigan Triangle is. So I'm going to try and paint this for you. You won't know. Like it's not going to be helpful at all, but I feel like it's part of my due diligence to say this.
To make sure I don't know.
So the top left corner of the triangle is touching Manitowoc, Wisconsin.
Okay. And
then if you go parallel on the top or perpendicular, I guess, like flat, horizontal along the top, you go to Ludington, Michigan. And then if you go down the bottom point of the triangle, you hit Benton Harbor, Michigan. So those 3 points make up the Michigan Triangle, the Michigan Lake Triangle.
Okay. And it cuts through Lake Michigan.
Yes. Here, okay. I'll show you real quick. So I would say for the most part that the triangle covers the top and the right side of the lake.
Yeah.
Now I really don't know who drew it. I would just say, if this was me, if I was creating this paranormal topic, I would just say Lake Michigan has stuff going on.
If you go past those boundaries, are you safe?
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Maybe it's just because they involve those cities, but really they don't. It's just kind of that area. But that is neither here nor there. I didn't create it. I'm just reporting it, so don't shoot the messenger.
Oh, can I ask a question really quick?
Yeah.
Does somewhere in the middle of that triangle, does that fall on a ley line? Or
It wasn't reported. I think that line, those lines are more of, I don't want to say center of the United States, but I don't think it goes through Lake Michigan.
Okay.
Aren't they more like in the continental, like the middle states? Because you talked about, when you were talking about the goblins.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would be lined up.
Well, there's many lines.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that could be something we could look up and talk about later. I didn't see that in my reporting.
Okay. Because I was wondering, because it seems pretty high up there. I wonder if there's like another, I can't remember if it's longitude or latitude, but I think it's latitude.
Longitude is up and down. Latitude.
Yeah. So I wonder if there's like a latitude line that goes through there.
It could be.
I was just curious.
What if it perfectly made the triangle?
I don't think you can do that.
That's not how lines work. So as a teaser, I will say that people theorize that this triangle leads to a different dimension, that it's a portal into time travel, that it's a hotbed for paranormal activity, and that it's even known for UFO sightings and an alien base. Pretty busy lake. And not only is it a busy lake, it is a dangerous lake. And we're not even talking paranormal. Just in general, it is known as the most dangerous lake.
Great Lake. Yeah.
Not the most dangerous lake. That's Lake Nikos, because there's like volcanic activity and magma. But so why is Lake Michigan so dangerous?
I don't know.
Well, it spans 300 miles in each direction, and the shores are parallel. And I guess because of that, it creates very unique wave shapes, and all of this can lead to really severe riptides, which if you don't know what that is, they are crazy dangerous. The riptides will pull you out to sea. You lose your bearings. More often than not, people try to battle the riptide, and typically I don't shy away from giving poor life advice, and don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that you're supposed to swim sideways, right, to get out of a riptide. Like, You're not supposed to battle it. You don't want to just accept your fate. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to go left or right. Like,
you're supposed to just float and say, well, this is where I live now.
This is my home. It's also known for...
I got caught in a riptide. I'm stuck here.
What's that Vance Joy song, right?
Yeah, that's
you like that song.
I do like
I saw him open for Taylor Swift 6 years ago.
Oh.
So the area is also known for squalls, which are freak high winds that can be accompanied by intense but very localized storms.
I thought that was a Nordic word for a moment. A squall.
Squall, no. Also incredibly high waves. But that's it. That's all the dangerousness of it. That's the natural stuff. Now let's get into some of the not natural stuff. Or maybe very, very natural.
I can't stop thinking of just a guy just like, oh no.
I'm out at sea. I guess it's seafood here on out. Okay. But what he didn't know was that he was the seafood.
Okay, I'm good.
The fish that's in the water. I don't know.
The hungry
alligator, maybe?
No.
Freshwater.
Yeah, but...
Listen, in your quiz, when I gave you the different animals, one of the wrong answers was almost an alligator, but I found an article where somebody said they found an alligator in Lake Michigan.
Get out of here.
So I couldn't, in good conscience, add it to that quiz, which you can listen to on the Patreon. But that's neither here nor there. Let's get to some of the paranormal experiences. Okay, so I broke these down into different categories, so to speak.
That's good. I love categories.
Do you? Like little boxes.
I love it that it's so organized.
Yes.
I don't have an organized mind.
I don't either. I'm forcing myself to. I do like 5 lists every day, otherwise nothing would get done. So if you look to your left, there will be a little box that says ships. Please pick up and open that box.
All right.
We are talking about ships, which makes sense because it's a lake after all. That's what people be doing on lakes, going on ships.
Going on ships to deliver things to other parts of the world.
Yeah, that's very nice. Yeah. Sharing. That's what we were taught at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes things don't go the way they should. So there was one story that took place in the 1600s that the logistics didn't make sense to me, and it was very basic, so I didn't include it. But just in case somebody's like, oh, there was something about a ship like the whatever.
It's French.
The Le Griffon or whatever. I didn't include it, so I'm sorry. And it's a long time ago. So we'll start at ship 1. This takes place in 1881, not that long ago. And this takes place near Milwaukee, but on, obviously, Lake Michigan. And this steamboat, known as the St. Albans, was completely abandoned by its crew and left in a sinking condition, as in it's sunk.
It's going down.
It's going down in an early round. And sugar, we're
going down swinging.
Yeah. So the crew got away safe and sound, but that was not the end of St. Albans. Just a month later, in late February, fishermen began seeing something out on the lake. Something that looked like a steamboat that fit the St. Albans description, but it had no crew and it had no smoke coming from its stack. Basically, no one manning it, just this ghostly ship floating out at sea, aimlessly floating. No purpose, no reason it should be out there. So in response to the fishermen's claims, authorities investigated the lake, but they never found a ghost steamboat nor the remains of the St. Albans.
It would be interesting if they did find, like, oh, we found this ghost ship.
Yeah,
probably in a harbor. It's a ghost now.
This goes crazy. It's like steam sound is boo. Boo.
That's kind of neat, though. Isn't that called the Flying Dutchman?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
in real life or in SpongeBob?
In real life, too.
In SpongeBob, too. You're good. You're good.
It was a ghost ship. So there's like okay. Can I take a sidetrack?
Yeah.
All right. So is it the idea that the ship itself has a ghost, or the energy of the ship? Like all the people that were aboard.
It's the mystery, even if it's not the St. Albans, it's the fact that fishermen are claiming to see a boat that doesn't have a crew on it and doesn't have steam. So there's it's just floating aimlessly, but nobody's able to find this ship.
So it couldn't be that ship.
Well, that's the thing. It looked just like the St. Albans, but it's like, wait a minute, that ship sunk.
Yeah, but they can't find the remains though.
Right.
So that's weird.
Mm-hmm. So you could, if you want to go back to what people theorize, maybe it was time traveling or a different dimension where it disappeared, or in a different dimension, it didn't sink, or it went through some type of time travel or went backwards, or I guess not so much time travel as maybe like a different portal where maybe when it sunk to the bottom, it went through it and came back up at the top. I don't know. There's no answer to it. There's no answer to any of this shit. There's no answer to life. All you know is every Tuesday you're going to have an episode. Yes. Number 2, ship story number 2. So in 1883, there was a wooden tugboat by the name of Mary McLean, which I think is also somebody famous. I think either a writer or a poet or an actress. Don't hit me up with what she actually was.
McLean.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm sorry. And if that offends anybody, I'm sorry. But that's not what we're talking about. So anyway, this boat worked out of the Chicago harbor. And one day, the crew on the Mary McLean witnessed something absolutely insane.
What was it?
On a cloudless day, while out on Lake Michigan in the Triangle, they claimed that for an entire 30 minutes, massive blocks of ice began falling from the sky. Much bigger than hail. We're talking big, shoebox size. Multiple pounds size. They were so big and so heavy that when they were falling, they were actually denting the boat's wooden surface. So even back in 1883, they knew that the Twitter trolls would not believe them. So they decided to take one of the ice blocks, put it in a cooler, and they actually showed people it when they got back to shore. So the ice existed in terms of what's reported, and they showed people. Not that that's separate from the event. I'm just saying, they did show people what they found. That doesn't explain what happened. There's no way to explain what happened. But it's just the idea that it's a cloudless day, and you have all these huge chunks of ice.
Did they say what month it happened?
I got 1883. I didn't get...
Okay. All right. It's very interesting. I don't know. I don't know weather. I don't know why that would happen.
I don't know weather.
It's very cool, though.
No umbrella would be able to save you.
No, gosh.
I wonder if anybody did get hit by it. Probably not.
Man, they'd explode. That'd be nuts.
Mm.
That'd be that would legitimately be like getting hit with an anvil.
You just you literally explode when it hits you. It's hey guys, I caught a...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Jerry. That guy owed me money. Ship 3, 1891. And there's a ship called the Thomas Hume. And it was traveling across Lake Michigan to gather and transport lumber. However, once entering the Lake Michigan Triangle, the Thomas Hume and its crew were never heard of again. So they were sailing along the Rue Simmons to Muskegon, and they hit a nasty storm, which led to the Rue Simmons to turn around, basically say, F this, and we're going to head back. But the Thomas Hume were like, nah, we got this. We're going to continue on their journey to Muskegon. But obviously that didn't turn out too well for them or the ship. The 7 sailors vanished completely along with any trace of the ship. When they didn't reach their destination, a search team was sent out, but not a single piece of the wreckage or the crew was ever found. Now you could say, well, duh, the storm caused it, but how come they couldn't find any evidence? It's like it disappeared. Boom, boom, boom.
I feel like they weren't very good at finding shipwrecks back then.
No, they just let the people who get dragged up by the riptide search for it.
Yeah, that's your job now.
Yep. Here's one cliff bar and like what are those things called with the circle things, the inner tube things?
Oh,
life
preserver.
Yeah, you get one of those.
Yeah.
If it pops, you're So, ship story number 4, the Rosabelle. Pretty name, right?
Oh yeah.
Would you name your boat that?
The Rosabelle. Sure, yeah, why not?
Okay. So, in 1921, the Rosabelle existed and had a crew of 11 people sailing, obviously, across Lake Michigan. So unlike many of the other ship stories surrounding Lake Michigan, the Rosabelle was actually found. It wasn't a ship that completely disappeared.
Okay.
However, it's the condition of it that is creepy. So the ship was found floating and overturned, and the cause appeared to be a collision, as if there was significant damage marks on it that showed that there was some impact. Not an iceberg, but it hit something. More than, it wasn't just overturned by waves or a storm or something like that. It hit something. So when they found the boat, the Rosabelle, overturned and floating, there was no sign of the 11 crew members, dead or alive. And the strange thing is that there were no reports of any other ship being damaged in a collision nearby. So no other ship was nearby. There was no visible debris from anything other than the Rosabelle itself. So, if this is true, what did it collide with and what happened to the crew? There's no answer.
I have no idea.
It's what's interesting about this is that every story has its own little thing. It's not like when you hear, and there's still many more stuff that we're going to get to, but it's not like when you hear like the same story repeated by multiple people. So you're like, oh wow, in your words, this has credence because 15 people all experience the same thing. It's like when you get into like Michigan in this triangle, weird stuff happens, but it's not all the same weird stuff.
Yeah, it's
like
not consistent.
No, but it's like all strange. It's like either the whole thing is missing. There's a ghost boat. Well, the boat's found, but we don't know what happened to the crew, and we don't know what it hit that caused it to overturn and look like it was in a collision. Now, on to ship number 5.
How many ships are there?
I think this is it.
Okay.
Well, am I boring you?
No, I'm just curious.
Am I losing you?
No.
Like, we're not that far in. So, this Lake Michigan Triangle story involves Captain Georgie R. Donner.
My God.
I have a date for you on this one. I know normally they've just been years.
Okay.
So now you can really put yourself in this place. You know what I mean? So it's April 28th. How you feeling about that?
April 28th?
It's kind of probably cloudy, right? Rainy.
Definitely rainy.
Definitely. So it's April 28th, 1937, and Captain Donner was guiding his ship, the O.M. McFarland, toward Port Washington, Wisconsin. Exhausted from his journey, Captain Donner told his crew that he was going to go rest inside the cabin, but he wanted them to come get him and alert him when they were getting close to the destination, basically Port Washington.
Yeah.
Because he's probably the only one that knows how to park it and tie the knot. He probably went to... He's a Boy Scout, and he knows, like, the
he's
knots.
like, only I can parallel park this boat.
Yeah.
I wish he'd parallel park my car.
There's probably no mirrors. Definitely no backup camera on that boat.
Some guy on the walk going, you're good, you're good.
Yes. That's the second time. There's a lot of SpongeBob there. So the crew followed his instructions, and about 3 hours later, as they got close to Port Washington, they went to retrieve him. But they were not able to enter because the door had been locked from the inside. So after calling the captain's name and banging on the door, the crew got worried and finally busted the door down and entered the cabin, only to discover that it was empty. There was no sign of Captain Donner.
Were there any windows?
They searched and they searched, but they found no clues to his whereabouts or how he disappeared, or even why he disappeared for that matter. Now, I did find one article that mentioned this. I saw a couple and I kind of compiled it, but only one mentioned that there were no windows or portholes big enough for the captain to squeeze out, and that it would be very unlikely that the crew wouldn't have noticed if he would have left his cabin and departed into Lake Michigan. But regardless, the cabin was locked from the inside, I'm assuming it wasn't the type of door where you lock the handle and you can shut it behind you. It seemed like something you had to keep locked from the inside.
Yeah.
So, how did he get out? Where did he go? And why did he leave?
Yeah. The biggest question is why?
Right. Nobody knows. It's a disappearance. It's a mystery. It is a Lake Michigan mystery. So that concludes our ship-based Lake Michigan Triangle mysteries.
Okay.
Let's move to the air, shall we? So this is the disappearance of Northwest Flight 2501.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Northwest 2501.
Yes, and I don't know if that's how you say it. I don't think people say, it's Northwest Flight 2501.
Yeah, I think they say the way you say it.
Do they say O or do they say 0?
I think 0.
Okay, see,
when I saw a lot of Lost, I'm pretty sure they say 0.
When I was reading it in my head, I was saying 2501, but then when I started actually saying it out loud, I was like, I think it's 0. I think you gotta say 0. Like when you say a phone number, do you say 0 or do you say 1?
I say ot.
What? Excuse me?
Just kidding. I don't know. I say 0.
I say O. Okay, so this is 1950, and we're talking about the Northwest Airlines Flight 2501. It was carrying 58 people. So the plan is that these folks were going to go from New York all the way to Seattle. Okay. And they were going to take a pit stop in Minneapolis.
Okay.
That was the plan. So there were 55 passengers and 3 crew members on this plane. And so to get from New York to Minneapolis, they had to fly kind of by Cleveland, kind of by Chicago, and directly over the Michigan Lake Triangle.
Do you think the pilots had a map marked out where this is the triangle we probably shouldn't go over. Let's go over.
That's the only thing they teach you in airplane pilot school. They're like,
where the triangles are?
Yeah, here's where the coffee machine is. Here's where you pull back to take off, and here are the 2 places, the triangles you don't go. That's it.
They broke the 3rd rule.
They did. They broke the 3rd rule. Well, they're probably overworked. He probably had to work 4 days that week. Although I joke about that, but I definitely would not want an exhausted pilot.
No, I wouldn't either. I definitely wouldn't either.
So, enter the scene. They're flying over Lake Michigan. It's the 50s. They're listening to 50s music.
Definitely smoking.
Yeah, definitely smoking. Children, even the kids, the babies are smoking. The babies are smoking.
Drinking whiskey sours, yeah.
Yeah, just to try to calm down a little bit. And around 11:30 p.m., the captain of Flight 2501, Robert Lind, radioed in that they were flying at 3,500 feet, but he requested permission to descend in a cruise around 2,500 feet. Now, to be clear, Captain Lind made no mention of why he wanted to descend. However, it was assumed that he asked because they were flying into a major electrical storm with high velocity winds. Now, ground control knew that. I don't know if that's what they actually call it.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Okay, they knew about the storm. I just want to make sure that it's clear based on my research that the pilot didn't say, hey, because of this storm. He just said, can I do this?
Okay.
He probably said it in a more professional way.
Probably more pilot-y manner.
And radio control is like, sorry, bro. There's a lot of planes out here right now. We're going to have to keep you at that 3,500. But for real, they were like, no, he got denied. So because of air traffic happening in that area, they had to stay at 3,500 feet. And that radio transmission was the last time anybody heard or made contact with the flight. Just minutes later, the plane completely disappeared from the radar. It never made its way to Minneapolis. It was never found. It was just completely vanished from the sky.
Oh my God. Imagine how guilty would you feel if you were the dude that said, nah, you gotta stay up there. I feel so bad.
He probably was like, did they radio in? Like, nope, nope, not me.
That's nuts. Okay, sorry, keep going.
So naturally, kind of like the ship story, you'd think that the storm caused the plane to crash.
Yeah.
But 70 years later, now I'm talking about, they still haven't found the plane. Now, there have been a few artifacts found in Lake Michigan and that have washed ashore. So a couple clothing items, a couple little pieces, cloths. Somebody found a cloth that had the plane designation on it. So there have been things found in Lake Michigan that let people know that something happened to the plane and it involved the water, but they haven't been able to find it. And maybe I know in like the 1900s, blah, 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 that, that's one thing. But people nowadays have found a ton of things in Lake Michigan, like tons of shipwrecks. They've found different artifacts. There's things we'll get to that they found in here later in this episode. But in the 1900s, or like when we joked about before, it totally makes sense that they wouldn't find a ship. But the fact that they haven't found this plane now, 70 years later, and there's people in groups that are actually dedicated, still trying to find it, that's kind of remarkable. And to make matters even stranger, you ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
About 2 hours after the final radio communication with Flight 2501, 2 police officers reported seeing a strange, unusual red light hovering over Lake Michigan and then completely vanishing.
What? That's the coolest part. What? That's crazy.
I know, dude. This is a podcast. Nobody else can see your expression. Oh, that was fun. But isn't that crazy?
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Except for all the people that disappeared and died.
Well, I mean, okay.
Besides that, it's
if you want to be
dope.
A bummer about it, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool, though.
So I have to ask you this because it's a movie I saw. I doubt you've seen it. I've already kind of known you haven't seen it, but I'm still going to ask. Have you ever seen The Langoliers?
No, I haven't seen it. No.
Okay, I believe it's Stephen King.
Yeah, I know.
But it's like this plane that flies into like spoiler, it's like 30, 40 years ago now.
Yeah.
But they fly into like a wormhole.
I saw the Nostalgia Critic on it.
Yeah, everybody that was asleep woke up on the plane still there.
Yeah.
And everybody who was awake disappeared completely. And they're like in a different time world where it's like they're like time's not moving forward, like everything's stale.
Yeah.
And there's these things called the Langoliers that come and eat up the time as they're moving. So it's crazy. And when you actually see it at the end, the wormhole that the plane flew into, like how did the pilot miss that? It's like, I thought it was going to be like a little thin line or something like that, but it's like this huge galaxy ass looking thing. And the pilot's just like, oh, what's that?
Bet I could hit the middle.
Exactly. Okay, now we're moving back to the ground, and I'm going to skim over this because this is literally the third time in like the last month we're talking about this, but I have to talk about it. It's the whole reason this is even here. So again, we talked about this already, and if you want to hear about it more in depth, you can either check out our Missing 411 episode, or you can check out the bonus Mount Shasta episode, which came out like 3 days later. But in summary, Stephen Kubachi was a 23-year-old student at Hope College in Michigan, obviously. And in 1978, he wanted to do a solo cross-country skiing trip because why not? And he ended up disappearing. His equipment was found abandoned, and footprints in the snow and ice by Lake Michigan seemed to just stop out of nowhere. He was assumed dead by either hypothermia or drowning until about a year and a half later, he was found in Massachusetts, 700 miles away, with no memory of the past year and a half. End summary. If you want to hear more about it, check out those two. For the people that know, like, oh my God, this one again.
Yeah.
You can't talk about the same thing 3 times in a month and a half. So now we went from the top of the water to the air to walking on the ground. Now let's go in the water.
Underneath
the water.
As below.
So, some folks claim that all the paranormal activity and the hoo-ha in Lake Michigan Triangle stems from this ancient underwater rock formation that was discovered back in 2007. Because like I said, people are searching, they're finding shipwrecks, they're looking for planes and ghost ships and things like that. And archaeologists found this rock formation using what's called remote sensing techniques. Basically, they survey the lakes and ground for hidden structures. Again, to find like shipwrecks and cars, stuff like that. Things we already discussed. But anyway, about 40 feet below the surface at an undisclosed area of Lake Michigan, which I assume is either because they're trying to keep it private so that a bunch of people don't go around there, or it's fake and made up. Scientists Mark Hawley and Brian Abbott found a ring of rocks that are similarly aligned like Stonehenge.
That's cool.
Which we'll talk about that one day.
Yeah. Stonehenge? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they send divers down to explore the area and take photographs. Probably the Riptide people. Like, all right,
you just float over there now.
Here's a camera. They just start dunking them under the water.
Man,
Get down there and take pictures.
Can I just get on the boat?
Shut up. Plug your nose. And the boulders were about 3.5 to 4 feet high and 5 feet long. And it's unclear whether or not this rock formation was man-made or naturally occurring, but there is one detail that hints that it was more than just Mother Nature that constructed these rocks.
Oh, what is it?
One of the stones in particular seemed to have a carving that resembled...
a mastodon.
Yes, a mastodon, which you know from the quiz.
Yes, I do.
Which is an extinct animal that sort of resembles a modern-day elephant. An elephant, Mr. Photo. Apparently, on the drawing, or the carving, it's a carving, it's not a drawing, it's rock.
Yeah.
You can see the back, the hump, the head, the trunk, the tusks, part of the legs, and a triangular-shaped ear, which we looked at and said, mastodon. Which, I'd like to point out, they existed about 10 to 12,000 years ago. They have been extinct since. Probably because of us. We're really good at making things go extinct.
It wasn't just us.
Except for taxes. Taxes stick around.
A lot of the big animals from about 12,000 years ago went extinct around the same time.
People gotta eat, man. That was that was your Shoney's buffet back then, dude. That's what you ate.
Shoney's buffet.
Yeah, you fed colonies with those mastodons.
That's true. That's true.
All right, let's move into the final category, which I know you will find the most interesting because I know you, and yes, we are talking about UFOs.
Yes, let's go.
Okay, so you know we can't do a paranormal, mysterious topic without getting into aliens. It's just not possible.
I want to believe.
And I didn't even make them up this time. They're out. They're out there. So here's the soft lead-in, right?
Okay, all right.
So in November, here's your month for you. In November of 1919, folks in southeastern Michigan witnessed a bright light span across the sky over Lake Michigan. The witnesses claim it was 2 large balls of fire that fell from the sky directly into the lake, making impact. So it didn't burn up. It actually hit the water. And they said the event was followed by a deep and long-lasting rumbling similar to an explosion or an earthquake. Now, a lot of people nowadays consider this to have been a large meteor, but could it have been something else? Maybe Baker Mayfield knows, like that meteor, UFO.
Yeah.
He saw over Lake Travis.
Hey, he's
Texas.
still convinced, man.
Yeah. But in general, it's not uncommon for people to report seeing strange lights in the sky over Lake Michigan. Now, there's a video out, which I'll show you, and I'll probably post on our Facebook group. Better for this type of video.
Okay.
So there's this UFO sighting video where it looks like a fleet of bright lights hovering over Lake Michigan. They look kind of like orbs, actually. And it's not the best quality because it can't be if it's paranormal. Everything looks like that stupid birthday party video from Signs. We haven't gotten past 1999. But at certain parts of the video, the orbs disappear and then reappear in the same spot. So apparently the video was analyzed by probably your hero and alien hunter extraordinaire, Scott C. Waring. Are you familiar?
I'm not that familiar with him.
You're
actually.
not Facebook friends?
He wouldn't accept me.
Okay. He claims it was definitely strange, unusual, and that there could be a secret alien base in Lake Michigan.
There could be, I guess.
I got a quote for you that he wrote on his website, UFO Sightings Daily. He said, "The lights were so close to the water that sometimes the reflection of the UFOs could be seen. Aircraft can be seen flying over the lights once in a while, but the lights and aircraft stay far apart. These lights are a sign that there's an alien base below Lake Michigan. Absolutely amazing. And even the eyewitnesses noted other people not looking at the UFOs. Very strange how people are too busy to look out the window. 100% proof that an alien base sits at the bottom of Lake Michigan off Chicago coast." Unquote.
Can I tell you what I think about this?
Do you want to send him a friend request now?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Can I tell you what I think about this?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about this Futurama episode where they talk about their spaceship and how if it went underwater, it would need to withstand hundreds of pounds of pressure.
Yeah.
And they ask the professor, how much can it actually take? And he goes,
"Good news."
He goes, "None. It's a spaceship." And they go underwater and it crumples immediately. Oh. It's so funny. Oh. But
this is the second time I feel like you've alluded to Futurama.
I love Futurama.
Kind of a scenario like that.
I love Futurama. But that's what I'm thinking about. Is like, if there's an underwater thing, it would have to be able to withstand space and water pressure.
Yeah.
Do you think it could? I don't know.
Oh, dude, like, let me ask you this. At what point do you start questioning how advanced alien technology is? You know what I mean? Like, just because we have submarines, and we have just Jeff Bezos on space. So we have both.
Not the same, though. Not in the same ship.
Not that we know of. Not that you can buy on Amazon.
That's true. I don't know.
If an alien... Okay, let me put this right.
Think of it.
If an alien can fly from their world to ours, I think I can buy that they have something that can last under our oceans. Or not even an ocean, it's a lake.
Yeah, I guess...
Maybe they first tried the ocean, and they're like, all right, too much pressure, man, too much pressure. Let's go to the lake.
I agree with you. It made me think of that concept.
There's these little aliens with, like, Matt Stafford jerseys on, who's not even there anymore.
The Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
So that's actually
they'd have to get it's like somebody ordered, like, there's like a drone Amazon dropping off. It's like, we have these Jared Goff jerseys. It says just to drop them off in the middle of Lake Michigan. Their apartment number is Lake Michigan Triangle.
We were very excited for the trade. The inevitable departure of Stafford.
So, let me just tie this together then.
Okay.
So this guy, who seems incredibly credible, is saying that there's this alien base potentially in Lake Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make you think of a story that maybe happened in 1919 where something fell from the sky directly into Lake Michigan?
Yeah. I mean, they had to set it up sometime.
What if that was... Well, these are two different articles. Let me just say. These are two different things pulling together.
Mm-hmm.
So what if what they saw in 1919, these two fireballs that fell directly into the water, is the same type of alien that created a base in the water?
Like those things that fell into the water, they might be like a bio environment underneath the water.
Yeah, they're just like, this is nice. You know, there's water and fish.
You sound like the alien trying to sell his alien wife why they should live underwater. There's water and, you know, there's like plenty of seaweed.
Yeah, she's like, what's that the star galaxy thing though? There's Xena.
Is that Reticular?
Zeta Reticulated. She's like, it's not like there though.
There's just a corpse next to this thing.
The ship. It's all the shipwrecks down there. Come on, honey. Everybody on Earth is trying to be in Michigan. I'll show you the video now. So you just saw the video. What's your immediate reaction?
My immediate reaction was your first question. Is maybe this a reflection? I don't think it is.
Oh, I didn't say that on here.
I know. You asked me that.
Yes, I did.
I don't think it is I don't think it is reflection.
They move.
Yeah, the lights move. And they're just kind of floating. It's weird.
It is strange.
I don't know what it could be.
I'll just say this now. I was going to save it for the discussion. But people that claim that it's not paranormal say that it was just planes.
No. You saw a plane in the video.
It's not. The plane looked down like,
incorrect.
This is weird. So, let's move on to the final story that I'm going to have for you about Lake Michigan. And it is arguably the biggest UFO experience. Well, it is the biggest UFO experience in Lake Michigan. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this takes place in 1994.
Okay.
So in 1994, strange lights filled the sky along Lake Michigan shoreline, which is just about 200 miles worth of shoreline.
Yeah, right.
So basically from Ludington, which is one of the areas where the point of the Michigan Lake Triangle is, down to the Indiana border.
It went all the way down there?
It was, yeah.
Wow.
This was massive. And it was obviously so crazy and strange to normal people, everyday residents, that the police station started getting flooded with 911 calls detailing these strange sightings in the sky. And again, what I mean by that is it wasn't like a select few people just happened to be looking at the right part of the sky and just happened to see it in a moment. You know what I mean? Like if you see somebody hiking or something and then they see something weird in the sky, like, oh my God, did anybody else see that? This is like, everybody saw this. This was a massive, massive thing that happened. One particular resident from an article I found on freep.com, Cindy Pravda, said that it looked like she had full moons over her tree line behind her horse pasture. She says she remembers calling her friends and just simply stating, I got UFOs in my backyard.
Wow.
So she watched them for like a half an hour, saying that some stayed stationary while others disappeared and then quickly reappeared in the blink of an eye.
Wow, that's crazy.
Even the police were calling in and questioning what they were seeing. So, meteorologist Jack Bouchon was working at the National Weather Service by himself in Muskegon when he got a call from a police officer that was really confused and disturbed by these unusual lights in the sky over Lake Michigan. So the officer wanted to call the National Weather Service to see, if these strange things they were seeing was making any sense, if it was showing up on the radar, anything like that. So when Bouchon took a look at the radar and he manually waved it back and forth looking for these objects, he was surprised by what he found. No thunderstorms or severe weather, but instead something else. Something that was flying across the radar, coasting at about 100 miles per hour. He said as he was watching the object, it stopped and started hovering. Quote, and then it shot up about 5,000 feet and then 10,000 feet. I was getting it just straight up. At this point, the police officer was saying that what he was seeing was the same thing, that same object, unquote.
Wow.
So he described seeing these triangle objects on the radar, oriented vertically before they finally spread out in like a horizontal line. Another quote from him, quote, one that's closest to the radar, so it would look bigger, and then there were two more. One on the shore of Lake Michigan, and the other inland a little bit. They were all separated by about 20 miles, unquote. And just one creepy detail that I just want to mention here is that, and it's actually interesting because it ties into our listener submission collection. He felt like the UFO knew that he was watching it.
Yeah.
Like they knew he was observing them, which makes me think about when the girl, Taylor, in her bed feeling like that the UFOs were for her. This isn't something I've seen a lot, but now that it's kind of back to back, I'm wondering if there is that connection where it's like, even if you can't explain it and there's so much distance between you and them, if almost like there's some telepathic connection.
Something.
When they know they're discovered or if they want to be discovered.
Yeah. God, that really reminds me of the Hudson Valley sightings. I don't know if you know much about that.
Mm-mm.
It is described very similar to this.
Where did that take place?
In the Hudson Valley, New York State.
Oh, New York?
Yeah. Upper New York.
Oh, Hudson, like the Hudson River?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Gotcha. They like water. They're thirsty. And also, just keep in mind that radar is intended to track weather patterns, not really aircrafts.
Right.
So the fact that they saw these objects so clearly on radar, to them, means that it's pretty massive.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah. So Bouchon said that these movements continued to happen until they made it all the way over southern Lake Michigan, where he observed dozens more objects enter the radar. And he said that went on for about 2 hours.
Wow. That's nuts.
Crazy. It's weird because it's like there's so many people that still don't believe in UFOs. And I guess UFO still does not have to mean alien. Right. It just means unidentified. Something. But it's like this is a huge, huge event that I feel like isn't talked about.
I've never heard that story.
Maybe it's not as many people as they make it seem like, but if it's really all along the shore, and you got police officers calling the National Weather Service, crazy. But that is our episode on the Lake Michigan Triangle. Let's discuss. So before we get to our discussion, we got 2 new patrons to shout out. So thank you so much to Adam and Harley. We appreciate your support. And a couple other quick announcements I just want to get to. 1, thank you to everybody who joined our Patreon last month and got our Bee Leaving the Bizarre shirt. 1, we hope you enjoy it. 2, if you haven't got it yet, just know it's on its way to you, so keep your eye on your mailbox. Also, reminder that our first 50 patrons, no matter what tier, get a personal handwritten postcard from Charlie and I. We're a little bit more than halfway to that 50.
Yeah.
So if you want that, jump on it, because we got tiers even as low as $2 where you still get a bunch of free content.
And even if you can't read my handwriting, I wrote it.
You can't read it, but it's there. Also, thank you to our patrons who voted on literally this episode, this topic. I wouldn't be talking about it if it weren't for you guys. Also, special news coming up for all of our Northeast Ohio patrons. August 21st, we will be at Highland Square's Porch Rocker event. There's a ton of local indie bands. They play on people's porches. Some people play on bigger stages on the street, but there's a bunch of food vendors. We're going to be one of those vendors.
Very exciting.
We have a special Porch Rocker themed shirt that you can only get by being there. So if you're in the Northeast Ohio area and you want to hear some local music, get some food truck food that you know it's not good for you, but you know it's going to taste great, and you want to see us, come on out to Porch Rocker in Highland Square, Akron, Ohio. That is August 21st, 2021.
And that special shirt designed by the same person who did our Believing the Bizarre shirt, Eddie, and it came out great. I'm really excited for the shirt.
So now, back to the discussion. Okay, dude. So, what are your thoughts on all this craziness that pertains to the Lake Michigan Triangle?
There are so many things that happened in the past with this mystery, with this Michigan Lake mystery.
The Michigan Lake
I
mystery.
almost want to tackle it in sections because it's how it was presented. I don't know what thing I'm going to. The first thing I want to talk about is the spheres. The spheres in the sky over the lake.
Yeah, we'll have to make sure we definitely post that video on Facebook groups that people know what
really
we're
cool.
about.
It's really cool. But those spheres were amazing. They weren't reflections. Probably not. No, they weren't reflections.
They moved, so you would assume they wouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe other people saw them outside just that video as well.
They're these huge light balls that are just floating. They look like little suns.
Orbs, kind of, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were supposedly disproved as just being planes.
No. Because in the video, there's a plane that goes past them.
Yeah, it's like, hey, look, hey, UFOs.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, plane.
Yeah, so I don't know what it would be. I don't know if it's an alien per se, but it's definitely not just a plane. And that's something I wanted to talk about because I find it very fascinating. I don't know what to do with that. Like, yeah, they're there.
So do you think all this stuff is connected, or do you think that it just is all coincidence? Assume everything that we've talked about this entire episode is true. Is it coincidental, or do you think there is a particular energy that surrounds Lake Michigan?
I think bodies of water, they kind of attract certain energies. And I think Lake Michigan has some kind of attraction to, maybe it is another dimension. Maybe that's what these UFOs are over the lake. They're interdimensional ships.
I don't know. I love the theory that what they saw in 1919 or the 1900s that fell from the sky was the UFOs, and they just stayed there. It totally could have been a meteorite though too, or a meteor that crashed. That's
totally what it sounds like to me, to be honest. But I don't know. I don't know.
So do you want some breakdowns?
Sure.
So the airplane that went missing, over the years they hypothesized that the wind made it go in a different direction. I'm saying this in the most layman's terms, and I apologize. But the wind currents, like the way that the wind was like cycling over the lake, it caused them to go in different directions.
Oh.
So in the last like decade or so, they come to the conclusion that they've been looking in the wrong place, or that even if certain parts of it crash and hit the water, that they need to start looking, I think they said south. There's different areas that they're now looking for the plane, and they're trying to make it make sense on why it didn't end up in the lake and where they expected. So there's search parties looking for that. In terms of the Thomas Hume, the one that just disappeared and the crew and everything, and they found it.
Oh, really? Where did they find it?
The bottom of Lake Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Now, it's remarkably
my backyard.
It's remarkably intact. Like, it looks good at the bottom.
Really?
But they did find, like, clothing and coins and jewelry. So they do believe that it is the Thomas Hume, but that still doesn't explain how it sunk. Now, obviously, it could have been the storm.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff could just be the storm. Like,
yeah. You said these waves are crazy anyway,
It's known
right?
for squalls.
Yeah, squalls.
A lot of these things, it's not so much that there were crashes. Like, the one with the collision, and they don't know who it collided with. That's weird, and that is unusual. But a lot of it isn't necessarily the fact that they crashed. It's more so like, why can't we find them?
Yeah.
Like the plane, probably the storm. How come we can't find it? The Thomas Hume, probably the storm. Why couldn't they find it? Which now they did. So it's kind of like not necessarily the fact of them crashing or disappearing. It's like, how come we couldn't find it?
Maybe they slipped into another dimension.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe that's what happened.
A lot of people,
I like that theory.
A lot of people theorize that, and then you just sprinkle a little bit of Stonehenge you know, Macedon boulders on there, and then UFOs on top.
Maybe it's fairy magic with the ruins underneath the lake, and it just creates this area of effect that I know I'm reaching right now, but it creates this area of effect over the lake, and it's just like things that go over it, sail over it, walk over it, things happen to these individuals and these vehicles, and they vanish, reappear other places.
We touched on it very lightly, but to defend you a little bit, that does kind of fit the theme of the skier, the cross-country skier, where he ended up 700 miles away a year and a half later, doesn't remember the last year and a half.
Maybe he was in another dimension.
I mean, at the time, I think we were thinking abduction, right?
Yeah, we were.
Before we kind of dove into this. So, I'm going to ask you where you are in the believability scale. Before I ask you that, I want to ask you this. After listening to this episode, do you have any, would you have any concerns either flying over Lake Michigan or going in a boat across Lake Michigan?
Let me put it this way. So if I saw I had a ticket going on a plane over Lake Michigan, I'd be like, what if I should change that flight? It's probably fine.
Probably fine. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Fine.
Okay, let me ask you this then. I know I said I only had one question, but I do want to ask you this. How relevant do you think the triangle is? Because for me, and I'm not going to say where I am on the scale yet, but I will say that the triangle, and maybe I just failed in terms of research on this aspect, but the triangle feels a little insignificant. It really, to me, feels like Lake Michigan. It doesn't, that the triangle feels so arbitrary.
I agree with you. I was going to say the word arbitrary. It feels like if you get past these particular lines, do the phenomenon stop? I don't think so. Like you mentioned Chicago. That wasn't in the triangle, was it?
No, it's southwest of the triangle.
Yeah.
But it's like the Bermuda Triangle, which I don't want to speak too much on, is huge. It's huge area. Like, why not just say the whole Lake Michigan?
I think the triangle is like a spin.
And maybe it's part of, I feel like it's kind of feeding off of that. But also, like, maybe, like, the lines, there's more to it, like you were talking about.
Oh, like ley lines.
Yeah, maybe it's something like that, where there's, like, these intersections. Or maybe everything is just super, super hyper-focused in that triangle, and it just wasn't portrayed that way.
Stuff, like, bleeds out past it.
Yeah, I
don't know. I think it's a whole lake, too.
That's how it feels to me. It feels like... But if it in terms of like a pitch, it's like, oh, it's the Lake Michigan Triangle. You like, like the Bermuda Triangle.
It feels markety-ish.
It's like an elevator pitch. It's like, oh, what do you want? What are you going to talk about on this week's episode? Oh, Lake Michigan. Like, oh, I mean the Lake Michigan Triangle.
You're like, what?
Like the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what it feels like to me,
Michigan.
Too. So how I feel about the believability of this, I don't know.
What if Tom Brady is siphoning? I know he's from California, but he went to Michigan. What if he's like siphoning all the power from this somehow, some way?
In his abs?
Yeah, like he's not actually in his 40s. He looks like he's 25, dude.
I know. It's crazy.
He's getting younger. Maybe he's sacrificing people. I don't want to put that out there on Tom Brady, but I mean, he could be sacrificing people in Lake Michigan.
I really like the idea that somehow it's connected to another dimension. I feel like I'm kind of hung up on that. I want to go with viable. I could see it happening.
I'm skeptical. I would probably be, if there weren't UFOs, if UFOs were not part of this episode, were not part of the Lake Michigan Triangle lore, I probably would go unbelievable. I think it's just a lot of storms. I think the water, the riptides, everything that I can't explain weather-wise and geography-wise that lead to all these storms and stuff, I think that makes it more susceptible to these experiences. I think the fisherman thing doesn't hold much weight to me. And I think it's just these ships go missing because there's these storms, and they eventually will or haven't, they haven't been found yet. Maybe they'll get found later. I'm waiting to see if any more information comes out about the airplane and where it could have drifted to. But the UFOs, I can't, we watched the video in 1994, all these people. Now, that's why I asked you if you think it's coincidental. Because you got, like, Stonehenge, you got the...
I think it's connected. I think it's all connected.
Oh, man. I mean, that's one area, and I got, like, 8 stories that span, like, 600 years. So, I'm gonna go skeptical. I'm not going unbelievable, because there's definitely some merit to these stories. Obviously, for me, the UFOs and everything. And the skier, who we didn't touch on that much because they've already talked about him a couple times. Right. So I definitely think there's something here, but I think so much of it could be just explained by storms and radio control, not letting the plane descend.
I'm going to stay optimistic, and I think it's possibly interdimensional.
Is it optimistic?
Hopeful?
Hopeful that there's another dimension in Lake Michigan?
I don't know, man. I'm going viable.
Okay. You heard the man. All right, well, that is our episode on the Lake Michigan Triangle. Thank you again, our patrons. Well, actually, thank you to everybody who listens, because you all rock, and it means a lot to us, and we appreciate it. But our patrons are the ones that voted on this episode.
Yeah, so thank you for giving it to us.
Absolutely. And if you guys want any more bonus content, interviews, quizzes, we just did our social media responses.
It was a lot of fun.
Every Monday, we put out questions, and you guys respond to it, and we actually read and respond to those on our Patreon.
That is seriously one of my favorite bonus segments that we do.
Yeah, because it's directly engagement. It's you guys comment, and we comment on your comments. And we say, well, we actually answer those questions too, so that's always a ton of fun. So if you want more bonus content, head over to Patreon, Believe in Bizarre. But again, this podcast and all of our episodes will always be free, so don't ever worry about that. We will always be here every Tuesday.
We got you. Don't worry. And if you are enjoying this show and you're like, oh man, I'm so glad they're free, and you're on Apple, you want to go ahead and leave us a review because it helps us. And if you have already, thank you very much.
Seriously, you guys would probably laugh if you saw some of our responses. Like, every now and then we'll get a text like, hey, we got a new review, and we'll screenshot it. I'm like, oh my God, that's like the nicest thing I've ever heard. And then we just show everyone around. It's like, it really makes our day. And I'm not saying that you should do that because of that. I'm just telling you that's a fact. Like, we text every day, and we always screenshot and be like, this is amazing. I'm going to post this on Instagram. So for everybody who has left a review, seriously, it's so kind. It means the world to us. And if you'd like to leave one, cool. And if not, we still appreciate you listening.
Absolutely.
But anyway, thank you so much for listening. As always, I'm Tyler.
I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre,
a podcast as bizarre as you are.